Good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of USA Hockey Officiating ZoomCasts. My name is Scott Zelkin, and I'll be your host tonight as we talk about officiating coaching and supervision, how to make the interaction between the officiating coach and the official as beneficial as possible. Joining us tonight for this ZoomCast as part of our panel, we have 3 distinguished guests. Coming back and welcoming him back for his second appearance on the Officiating ZoomCasts are Keith Kaval. Keith is the Director of Officiating for the North American Hockey League and the NAHL. He's a longtime minor pro official with experience in the American Hockey League and in the old Central Hockey League, as well as the ECHL, and is one of the most distinguished international ice hockey officials we've had, working multiple world championships and world juniors. The second gentleman joining us this evening, current official, Andrew Bruggeman. Andrew is working full-time in the American Hockey League and the ECHL as a referee. He has also worked last year the 2019 World Junior Championships in Vancouver and in Victoria, British Columbia, and was slated to spend the month of May in Switzerland this year at the World Championships. And we all kind of know what happened to those things. With the rest of our hockey season, that was canceled. And then finally joining us from Cincinnati, Ohio is Dave Madsen. Dave is one of the most well-respected officiating coaches that we have within USA Hockey. He coaches and evaluates officials in the USAH, in the ECHL, and he has also had a long and distinguished career on the ice in the old International Hockey League, the CCHA, and the World Hockey Association, for those of you that may remember the Cincinnati Stingers and Chicago Cougars and maybe even the Edmonton Oilers. So I want to welcome all of our panelists this evening, and I also want to welcome those of you watching on the ZoomCast or on the webcast through Zoom, as well as those of you watching on YouTube Live. Andrew, when we talk about officiating coach vision, supervisors first reached out to you and said, we want to talk about how are we going to make a good experience for officials, and what's the message we want to deliver. Give me a couple of sentences about what might have gone through your mind.
I was excited to join and be able to share my experience with everybody, and I had the pleasure to work with all 3 of the other panelists on here, and it's been a pleasant experience for me, and I hope it's been for them as well. But just more than that, all the people and my experience with working from working mite hockey and getting supervised there all the way up through. And I think it's officiating development coaches are a key part in helping us grow as officials and helping us to reach that next level, whether it's going from a mite game to a squirt game or something even higher than that.
Exactly. And Mad Dog or Dave, when we're talking about officiating coaches or being the guy in the stands to watch the officials, why do you do it? What have you been doing? Why have you been doing this for so long? And what's, what about it is so important?
Well, it's rewarding to me to see guys, advance their careers if they're interested in doing that or get to the highest level they can get. Also, you give back to the game by doing it. And, again, it's been rewarding for me. I've had been doing it for quite a while now, and I've seen a lot of guys advance the levels they want to get to. And, when they send a thank you along, it's just, it's just really nice. And it's still a lot of fun, to be involved with the younger guys and see some good hockey.
In Cass, when you're now in management, and but even at the local level, what's the key part? What's the key role that an officiating coach or evaluator plays in the world of an official? You've been both recently. You've been on the ice, and now you're in management.
Yeah, I think the most important thing, and it's similar whether you're coaching a mite official or if you're coaching a pro official, it's about giving support. It's about giving good feedback, and a lot of it just goes back to just basic fundamentals. And you can ask Andrew, who's still on the ice at a very high level, a lot of stuff that he learned probably in his first, second seminars are some of the things he still does today. So a lot of those stuff is ingrained by our mentors, our officiating coaches that can make us better and help us. And if we are struggling, maybe we have a bad patch of games, you know, you can kind of go back on some of those things that you learned a long time ago and just keep it simple. And whatever you use to build that foundation, you can kind of go back to that and try to make things right. But it's no different from being, like I said, a mic game to, you know, an ECHL or American League game or an international game. It's the same ice. It's the same setup. You're just really going back to what's normal and what pretty much is comfortable for you.
No, that's great. And, you know, with those opening comments, what I want to do now is we've kind of done with the other Zoomcasts that we have, is I want to start with a little bit of a poll question, get the feedback of those of you in the audience. So I'm going to put up a poll here, and I'm going to take a couple of minutes. There's a handful of questions. We'd like you to answer them as honestly as you possibly can. So, you know, how many times during each season are you usually evaluated by a USA Hockey evaluator or officiating coach? More than 5, 3 to 5, 1 to 2, none, or don't ask me, I'm not an official. You know, number 2, during your last evaluation, was your performance feedback given in person after the game, or did you receive a call or email at a later date? During your last evaluation, did you find the feedback you received helpful, somewhat helpful, not helpful, never received any feedback, I've never been evaluated, or I'm not an official? Once again, in your last time you had an officiating coach at your game, were you comfortable asking the evaluator or the officiating coach questions during your feedback session? And then the amount of officiating evaluations completed in my area is not enough, about right, too much, and I'm not an official. So let's give it about 30 more seconds here and see where we're at. Okay, so I'm going to share the results, and honestly, this is going to be really interesting and really insightful. So, how many times are you evaluated by an officiating coach? A very small percentage of you see more than 5 times. Quite frankly, too many of you are not evaluated at all. And then we've got a good portion that are between 1 and 5 times during the season. Was your evaluation given to you in person or after the game or by email and all of that stuff? The majority of you received an evaluation or received feedback right after the game, which is good. That's what we're looking for. Did you find the information you received helpful? Almost half of you, yes, and then we're almost at 3/4 somewhat helpful or very helpful. During your last evaluation, did you feel comfortable asking questions? Yeah, the majority of you did. That's good. And you are almost 3/4 of you, the amount of officiating evaluations completed in my area is not enough. And then about 20% of you, 18% of you said that's about right. So what we're going to do is we are going to spend some time talking about some of these different topics, and we're also going to get into the terminology we're using. I see one of you just mentioned, I've never heard the term officiating coach before. So let's share my screen. We're gonna get into a little bit of a PowerPoint and some discussion, and then, like we do with all of these, the back half of this is we're gonna take some questions. So you all should be able to right now see the opening slide, the Officiating Zoomcast page. So let's talk about coaching versus supervision. What's the difference? Why does terminology matter? So that gets back to the question that just came up. Well, what's a supervisor? If you go to dictionary.com or you look it up in Merriam-Webster's dictionary, a supervisor is a person who supervises workers or the work done by others. So that's just somebody that's really watching and determining whether they're doing a good job or a bad job. So years ago, Dave, that was what you were called, right? You were called a supervisor. And what does that denote to you? Are you there to help, or are you there just to determine whether or not the official does a good job?
Oh yeah, years ago, I mean, when I was on the ice, and until just a few years ago, they were always called supervisors. And typically, like, we didn't get a lot of feedback either after the game, and then they would go and they'd write their reports, and you never knew where you stood. I think you're going to get into it when you show the other definition, but a coach is someone who helps and talks and helps the people that he's watching. So there's a big difference, and hopefully that's what we're doing, these days.
Right. So coaching is to give instruction or advice. Does the Chicago Young Americans, the Tier 1 program, do they hire supervisors to stand behind the benches of their teams, or do they hire coaches? They hire coaches. And right now that is the term, and that's really where we're trying to get to in terms of what we call the people that USA Hockey has come to the games, right? Officiating coaches at your game, what's their purpose? What is their purpose? Their purpose is to help you become a better official. That's what they want to do. Andrew, I know when you find out that there's going to be an officiating coach at your game, ultimately, what's your goal at the end of the night? Is your goal to do well, to come away with information? What are you looking for?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you want to perform and show why you're in the league you're working and why you are working the games you're working. But overall, I think we're all in a position, no matter what game it is, that you can learn something every single night. No matter if it's a gold medal game in an international event or, a cross ice mic game at 7 a.m. on a Saturday. I think anytime there's a supervisor, the overall is just being excited to learn something new or maybe tweak something in your game that you didn't realize maybe you were doing wrong.
Right. So Keith, even at the youth level, at a 14U game or whatever it may be, the purpose is to learn, to teach, to coach the officials, right?
No, absolutely. And even more so, just offer support. When an official goes to the seminar, that's great. You sit there and for whatever the duration is, but at the end of the day, it's having that feedback and having that support to kind of learn. And you guys talked about it earlier in a couple of the other Zooms about having a mentor as a support and stuff like that. It's good to have another set of eyes up there that can be there to offer some advice and some feedback, and just basically, again, build that foundation for that official and honestly make that official want to come back and give that support. Because, when you step on the ice, it's one thing at the seminar when you go through the ice session and everything's quiet, you're there with other officials and the instructor, but now all of a sudden you've got two teams, you've got parents screaming, you've got all kinds of stuff, and you're inside that bubble. It's a different world. So it's really critical to have that support and get good feedback just to really set that official up for success.
No, exactly. Right. I mean, we're trying to teach them things. We're trying to help them learn. So now we're going to go back and share here, and what should expect, right? So when we look at when we looked at the poll questions, there are some of you that quite frankly haven't been in a position to where an officiating coach has been at your game. And that is something USA Hockey as a whole needs to work on, and that is something that we are constantly striving to improve upon. Many of you do have this experience. So what should an official expect when an officiating coach is at their game? Dave, when you're normally at a game, when you get out of the car and you walk into the building, what's the first thing you're going to do when you get to the rink?
First thing I do is knock on the official's door, and if I don't know the guys, introduce myself. If I don't know them, I try to spend some time with them, getting to know them a bit before the game, so we have somewhat of a rapport. They don't know me, I don't know them. You know, we talk, we chat, we become familiar, and you know, then it's easier to talk to them after the game rather than just, you know, come in and say, hey, I'm here to watch you today and coach you. I'll see you after the game. You know, there's no give and take. So we try to, you know, maybe have a laugh before the game or something as they get ready, and then let them go do their business, and then you know, talk after. That's the first thing I do, and I probably spend more time in the room than a lot of guys do, just to develop that rapport.
Yeah, but that rapport is really important, right? I mean, Andrew, thinking back 5 years ago when you were, you know, a little bit of a younger official, maybe working more youth games and stuff, maybe even a few more years than that. When somebody walked in that was a USA Hockey, and back then it was a USA Hockey supervisor or whatnot, did you get a little nervous, right? I mean, my guess is, because I certainly know I did, you get a little nervous, and that rapport is going to help set your mind at ease and make you feel less pressure as you go on the ice, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Just having, like Dave was talking about, that little bit of relationship, make you feel valued as an official, and that the evaluator or supervisor or coach is there really to help you and is part of the team, and makes you feel a little more at ease with maybe the pressure that you're feeling to perform.
Absolutely. And what we, you know, whenever an officiating coach is at the game, they don't want to make your job more difficult as an official. They're there to help. And usually when we're getting help, that's a good thing. So the purpose, like David said, right, you're there to build that rapport, put them at ease. And I can tell, you know, for all of the folks watching tonight, that's the reason Dave is the most well-respected officiating coach we have within our program. Is it's the time and to a man within the junior ranks, when Dave walks into a building, they know he's there to help you. He's there to make you better. And ultimately, that's the goal. So when a coach is there, you know, you should expect that you're going to see them before the game. That they're going to talk to you for a couple of minutes, and you know, and then what are they watching? Right? They're watching a whole host of different things, and Keith even mentioned on the ZoomCast a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about communication with teams. They're watching how you handle yourself before the game when you get on the ice. How do you skate? But they're looking at all of these different things: skating, positioning, your judgment, your rule knowledge, your procedures, your teamwork, USA Hockey fundamentals. You know, as an official, you all have manuals in place that talk about how USA Hockey wants their officials to position themselves, to work in the corners, to assess penalties, and that is important. And different leagues do different things, but those are all the things that officiating coaches are really looking for, and those are the things the officiating coach is going to help you with, right, Keith?
No, absolutely. I think honestly, it's the basics, right? That we talked about earlier that are going to lead you to success at the higher levels. But it really is. It's the hustle. It's doing those little things. And when you have someone like Dave come into the building, he's there to support you, and it starts from the beginning of the game, and he's there, and there's a reason why he's well respected, because he's very, very detailed oriented, and he gives our guys a lot of great feedback, and it's all those different components: the skating, the positioning, your signals, your comportment with the teams, with the coaches, stuff like that. It all adds up to something that he's going to watch and try to bring out maybe the best in you, either for that game, and certainly try to help you improve on some of those things that maybe you fell a little bit short of.
For sure. And you know, the truth is, at the higher levels, they may be doing a bit of evaluation to see how you might stack up to other people. That's the truth. But ultimately, officiating coaches are there. Maybe they're going to give you tips. I don't know how many of you that have been watching, you know, that are watching tonight have had the opportunity to watch yourself on tape. And the officiating coach, when they're there at Bruggs, I'm going to guess, they might point some things out to you that you didn't know you were doing, that you didn't realize how you were standing in the corner, and you've been fighting traffic and you've been getting in the way a few times over the last month or two of your games. And now all of a sudden the officiating coach comes in and says, well, you're getting drawn to the puck. The puck's a magnet. You're always going to the puck, right? And you didn't know that. So I'm going to guess there's been a number of times where they've pointed things out to you that you didn't realize you were doing wrong.
Right. Yep. And it's great to be able to have that conversation. You can, sometimes we're a little biased if we do have the ability to watch video and you look at something like you're saying, getting in the way of the puck, and you chalk it up to bad luck. But when you can have someone in the building with you that watches it, notices it, and you can have the conversation then about where's the better positioning, it's a really useful tool to be able to go back and forth with the officiating coach.
Absolutely. You know, and when we talk about USA hockey fundamentals, I think it's important to mention that, and you know, both Keith and Andrew can speak to this, but you're going to see things on TV when you're watching the National Hockey League that might directly contradict what you'll find in a USA Hockey manual. You're going to see officials, referees go behind the net. You're going to see them do a bunch of different things that are really not in line with what USA Hockey is asking you to do. Why does USA Hockey ask its officials to do things certain ways, Keith?
I think the biggest thing is your safety as an official, and more importantly than that, the safety of the players. You don't want to be put in a position where you're going to get in harm's way, get hurt. Maybe a player gets run over, something happens there where, you know, the guys on television, right? They're the best in the business. They're trying to do everything and anything they can to get the call right. And for us, you know, we need to use those basic fundamentals, because it really does. It keeps us safe, and more importantly, it keeps the participants safe, and it keeps us in a better opportunity to see more things, battle for sight lines, and you know, basically give the game what it needs, and keep us safe.
For sure. And I think one of the biggest things, and once again, we talked about this in communication with teams the other night, but one of the big things we were talking about was skating, and under skating, in terms of something that an officiating coach is looking for, is hustle, is effort. Right, Dave? Why is it important that we're coaching our officials to work hard at all times? Why is that one of the most important things you talk to officials about?
Well, number one, Keith just mentioned about sidelines. The more effort you can use to get to the best place to see will give you the best opportunity to make the right call. That's it. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. I mean, honestly, too, we're putting on a show. You know, we're at the higher levels. We're part of the show, and we want to be noticed. We want to be noticed to get to higher levels and things like that. And one of the best ways to do it is show that effort. But that can be at the lower levels too, at the grassroots level. You know, if an officiating coach sees a guy just working his tail off, you know, he's the one that's going to get a chance, an opportunity at you know, when an opportunity comes up.
For sure. But also, you know, when a coach sees an official at a sport level game and a coach sees an official working hard, is that going to create the opportunity for an official to gain more rapport or more respect from that coach?
Yeah, the teams see that too. They see a guy's working hard, and you know, maybe he makes a mistake and you know, something they don't agree with, but you know, they'll give him a little slack because they know he's working hard. It's easy to see the guys that work hard compared to the guys who are just going through the motions.
And that's what you just said there is one of the most important things when we talk about officiating at any level, is if you're working hard, everybody notices. The parents are going to notice, the coaches are going to notice, and the players are going to notice. And that's really important. Andrew, you played too at not only the youth levels, but in the junior levels, and officials that worked hard always brought a little more credibility.
Absolutely. Yep. You see that that officials, they're working hard, they're doing their best too, and so you let a little bit slide with them. You know, maybe a referee misses a call and he tells you, hey man, like, you see, I'm working, I'm trying. And yeah, you give him a little bit of slack because you recognize that effort and you appreciate it as a player.
No, for sure. Okay, so now we've had the game has gone on, and now after the game, all right? So after the game, what's going to happen? And the majority of you talked about the fact that your feedback that you received occurred in the dressing room after the game. And ultimately, in USA Hockey, that's what we want. In most cases, that's the opportunity that the officiating coach is going to be there to talk with the officials about things that went well and things that maybe they need to improve on. And it's all going to be fresh in everybody's mind. And, you know, in most cases, there's going to be some good and some bad and some in between, right? That's what you should expect when officiating coach is at your game. And there may be times when that follow-up is going to occur afterwards at a later date, but ultimately, I think, Keith, you agree that when an officiating coach comes down right after the game, that's where you're going to get the most kind of bang for your buck in terms of resonance and what's gonna hit home. Correct?
No, absolutely. I think that's something you take some of the things from the game and try to reinforce, what the league may want or whatever the organization may want. And, for me, I look at things during the game, right? I think of some of the past supervisors I had, not coaches, but supervisors, and some would be very nitpicky. And for me, I look at trends during the game. Him or her an official, or are they getting late to their blue line? Is it a hustle thing or something like that? Every once in a while in a game, something's going to happen where we're going to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. To be overcritical on some of that stuff that happens maybe once or twice a game, I think isn't right. Like, we're there to build confidence and try to reinforce what they're doing right, try to improve on some of the things that maybe they came up a little bit short on. But again, you want to leave that official at the end of the night with a good feeling that they want to come back, they want to get better, and they want to improve on some of the suggestions that you're giving as an officiating coach.
No, for sure. And I think, Andrew, if Mad Dog walks in and gives you 8 or 9 things that occurred within the game that he wants you to work on, are you going to be able to internalize all 8 or 9 things and work on that? Or are you going to try and pick 1 or 2 things that might be most important? And I'll ask you to answer, and I'm going to flip it back to Dave in a second. But, are you just trying to pick a few things? What's your thought process?
Sure. If I'm getting 8 or 9 things after a game, I'm guessing I probably struggled a little bit, but that happens from time to time, as all of us as officials know. But generally, I think 8 or 9, as you get more than a couple, it gets to be overwhelming in terms of because you want to make corrections immediately. And, whether that's the next night in another game, or whether it's in 2 hours and you're at a different rink across town. So getting all that much information is overwhelming, where I would rather, get the 1, 2, 3 major things that are maybe causing the other issues and focus on that.
For sure. And Dave, are you gonna come down with 8 or 9 things, or are you gonna pick out 1 or 2 that maybe are gonna be the most beneficial?
There's nights where there could be 8 or 9 things, but you kind of have to pick your battle, so to speak, and prioritize, when you look at the big picture of the game. And what I like to do is I like to have an active discussion with the guys. I don't like to do all the talking. I like to put something out there and ask them questions about what they saw, how they saw it, and sometimes that puts a different spin on it. The biggest thing that I learned when I left the ice and became a supervisor years ago was that it's a different angle. It's a different sight line. It's very different watching a game from ice level than it is from up above. So I always want to talk to the guys and see what they have to say about a situation where I thought they might have erred, but you know, after a discussion, I can see where they came from. So that's the biggest thing to me, is not to dictate, but to have an active, you know, interaction with both the referee and the linesman, and you know, come to a consensus after it.
Absolutely. And you know, the thing is, and Keith, I know when you're in buildings and when you walk into a room after a game as kind of not only their boss, but as somebody that's going to give them some constructive feedback, the officials, what do most of the officials do? What's the first thing most of the officials do when you walk in?
They'll take out a notebook, right? And we'll sit down just like Dave talked about, and we open up our dialogue on what went over the game. And sometimes, as you know, and Andrew and Dave knows, sometimes there may be a deeper discussion. Maybe there's some opportunities in the game where we could have handled things differently, and we can talk about that. But all in all, like Dave said, it's good to have that give and take and that feedback going back and forth to get their viewpoint. And they're very good about just being open and honest and taking that down. And basically they can go back after a game and watch it on video, and we can continue that discussion, you know, for another time. So it's not the end of the story, right? We're not closing the book once I leave that room. I mean, we can still talk about it and try to really reinforce what maybe went right and maybe try to fix what we could have did a little bit better.
No, for sure. And the thing I want to get at, and this is really crucial, not even at the higher levels, but at any level, when especially now, you know, we look at the polls and the poll question, and, you know, the reality is there are officials that don't get seen on a regular basis and maybe aren't as fortunate as the officials within the junior program to get seen, but so it may not happen often. So I would encourage every young official out there that's watching, carry a notebook around, carry a pad of paper, and when an officiating coach comes in, take some notes, write some things down, because they're going to talk to you about skating. And we had a really good question, and I'm going to get to it in the Q&A, about coaching younger officials and what are we talking to them about. But it's really important to take that feedback you get and write it down, because I don't care whether you're 14 years old or 54 years old, you're not going to remember everything. And if you have that to go back to, it's always going to help, and it becomes a really good resource even over the years. And so that's, you know, that's something we would encourage every official to carry around. And when they do have an officiating coach, you know, pull that out. So, okay, in the real world of ice hockey, not everybody is going to give the same message, right? So, Andrew, what happens after a game if an officiating coach walks in, regardless of level, and he says to you, Andrew, I want you to do something this way, and now that conflicts with a message you might have received a month ago, a week ago, or a year ago? What are you going to do? How do you handle it when officiating coach A says one thing and officiating coach B says the exact opposite?
Yeah, I mean, rule number one is be respectful. That person's given their time, the coach is given their time to give you feedback based on their knowledge. But I would definitely voice to them that, you know, I've received this feedback and that's why I'm doing it this certain way. Is there a middle? And then maybe there's a middle ground. And is there a right way or a wrong way, or both ways potentially equally right? But I would definitely relay that message that there is a differing opinion within the supervisory staff or the coaching staff, if we want to call it that.
Oh, for sure. And I think, Keith, sometimes we've discovered that the message that's been given to the official is the same in both cases, but maybe they've interpreted them differently. And so, you know, we want that official to reach out, whether it's saying to the officiating coach, hey, you told me this, but Mad Dog told me that. You know, I want to make sure I'm doing it the right way. We want to, what I want to encourage all officials to do, though, is find out the answer. And the officiating coach, if he gets told that he or she is told that the message they're delivering is inconsistent with something they've heard before, you know, we want to believe that that officiating coach will find out what's the correct bit of information and then follow up with that official, right? Keith?
No, absolutely. And that's the thing, right? As officiating coaches, yeah, it's great. We have some good backgrounds and we have a lot of experience, but we don't have all the answers. And I think it's good to have that dialogue like we talked about, but you know, there's going to be times where, like Dave said earlier, you see things from different angles, from high above, no different than the coach is seeing something different from their vantage point. So there's different angles, there's different plays, there's different things going on. You know, sometimes it's good to continue the conversation past that game. It's not, like I said earlier, it's not open and closed book there. Like you know, we don't have all the answers, but we want to be on the same page and we want to try to come to a consensus. And again, I think we're lucky, right? Because, you know, we work for various leagues where we have X amount of officials that can hear that same message. For many of you officials out there in USA Hockey land and across the world, you know, you hear different messages from different people. That's tough, right? And you're always trying to find what's the right message, what's the right thing to go on and to stick on. And I think a lot of it's the fundamentals, right? We go back to our USA Hockey education program with the manuals and all the stuff that we have to use. I think honestly, if you stick with that stuff and go back to that, that's really going to build your foundation and hopefully we can come to that consensus.
No, for sure. And a chat just came across and it's right. It's, you know, as the official receiving the feedback, don't be defensive. Right? That person's there to help. So listen, don't immediately hit them with a but I did this or but I did that. And we'll get that all the time. And you know, or every now and again. And there are going to be times when you as the official on the ice are not thrilled with the feedback. You're going to think that officiating coach, what could they possibly have been watching? Because they're completely not in tune with the job you think you did. And what I would encourage any official out there when that happens, you know, right after the game may not be the best time, but if you have a live barn subscription or you're able to watch the game, take what they've said, go back and watch it, evaluate it, try and do it with an open mind. And then if you still think the officiating coach might have been incorrect, you know what? Like has been said on here a few times, that person's out there donating their time. They're there because they want to make you better. So in most cases, that officiating coach would be welcoming of you reaching out and saying, hey, can we have a discussion about the game you saw me at 2 weeks ago? I've reviewed it and I'm not so sure I agree, but I want to talk about it. And it's a collaborative effort. Real quick, I want to share this last thing, and then we're going to get to some questions because there's a lot of good questions that have been coming in. So this video, and it's more like a cartoon, was put together, and this is kind of the ideal situation. So we're going to let this roll for a couple of minutes here. All right, it's not working. So unfortunately, it didn't work. So what happened is that nice little cartoon figure there talks to an official, and they have some very good give and take. And the official takes out a notepad. They have some good discussion, and it really describes exactly what Mad Dog was talking about in terms of, you know, not you did this wrong, Andrew, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, you did this wrong. It's more, I saw this, how come you did it this way? And then the referee is able to give his feedback in terms of what he thought and why he did it a certain way. And I think without a doubt, when you have one of those interactions, Andrew, you always walk out of the rink feeling better about yourself versus the situation where the supervisor is just dictating to you, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I like the dialogue. Like I touched on it a couple of times, I think the biggest thing is trying to learn. And so if you have questions and you're not understanding of the supervisor, if that coach comes in and is just telling you you're wrong, well, you're not getting a whole lot better out of that. If we have a discussion about maybe why things are going wrong, or maybe there's just a difference of opinion between, you know, the coach and the official. So I think that the conversation is much better than just being told that you're wrong, and you feel a lot better about it too, as you said.
No, for sure. And, you know, Keith, sometimes you're going to ask the official, even if you think it was the right call, you're going to ask that official, what'd you see on that play? How'd you look at that? And why are we going to even ask it when we agree we did? Why are we going to ask that question?
I think sometimes you want to know what their mental, you know, what they're thinking about and what their process was and what led them to that decision. But again, I think more importantly, to reinforce that they did the right thing and to continue to do that. And I think that's some of the important points of maybe not be laboring on some of the mistakes or whatever, but really trying to leave them with a good feeling when they are doing the right things and making the proper calls or keeping the players, you know, safe on the ice. That's something you want to reinforce to build confidence so they can take that onto their next game and you know, almost like a team, you get on a winning streak as an official, you have that confidence and know that you can do the job and that you have support to do the job.
No, for sure. So let's get to a few questions here from the audience. So Dave, I'm going to hit you with this one first. As the officiating coach, do you like to talk to the officials in between periods? So we're talking, you know, a game that might involve a resurface, at least one. But if you're at a game and there are breaks in between periods where you can go down to the room, do you like to go down and talk to them?
The only time I go down is if I perceive that there's a problem and it's not being dealt with what I think is the right way. And we need to talk about that before the teams go back out. Otherwise, I stay out of the room during the game. I let the guys do their thing, and be that as it may, and then we'll talk about it after.
Andrew, do you like having Andrew, do you like having the officiating coach come down in between periods?
Yes and no. I don't like someone coming down and saying, hey, you got to call this, and this. Generally, that would be between the first and second, and changing a standard at that point would be tough. But if it's something positionally, or like Dave was saying, something's heating up that maybe the supervisor notices that maybe we as officials on the ice didn't notice, you know, there's interaction at the bench and things like this. It's good to have that knowledge. But in general, I would say I like to just talk after the game.
And I think the most important thing for an officiating coach is you have to make a determination what benefit is going to come from you going down and interrupting the flow of the game. Now, at a lower level game where, you know, maybe it's the first time in a three-man system where that referee has ever worked a tier 1 Bantam game or something like that, and this is the first time, and you just want to go down and give them a pat on the back. That's an okay thing. That's good for their confidence. If you can talk about, you know, positionally things, they've been getting hit quite a bit in the corners, and you might be able to tweak something a little bit, that might be okay. I think every situation's different, but you know, it just kind of depends on the level as well. Keith, here's a good one for you. As you coach new or younger officials, so we're talking 12 to 14 years of age, what is the most common suggestion you have to make to these young officials?
I think the biggest thing we talk about just engagement in the game and remaining focused and skating hard. I think a lot of things go through their brain, right? They're thinking about where do I need to be here for this position? Is it the 2 official system? Is it the 3 official system? And you start thinking about, you know what, I got a line change. I've got to make a penalty call, the signals, all these other things go through their mind. So, I mean, my message to them is just to try to keep it as simple as possible, right? And I think they can learn a lot when, again, we go back to the mentor referee or leaning on that little bit more experienced official and kind of mirroring what they're doing on the ice, and just trying to trust what they're doing and trying to do the same things. But really, it's hustle, it's working hard, and it's easier said than done at times, but trying to block out all that outside noise, because until you feel comfortable, there's so many things that are going on inside your head, and then you have all that external noise. It can become challenging.
For sure. And I think the one thing I would add to that question, because I think it's a really good question, and I'm fortunate. I've got he's now 15, but he started officiating as a 14-year-old. And so I would either go watch his games or might even work a handful of games with him every season. The biggest thing I can offer as a suggestion to officiating coaches when you're working with young officials is positive reinforcement. Positive reinforcement. It can be so challenging at times to go out there and absolutely the skating. Skating is key and positioning is key. And a lot of times at those levels of play, at the might and squirt levels, there are only going to be a handful of situations where they might need to work on their judgment in a game. But if we're talking about positioning and we're positively reinforcing how they're doing things and giving them those sorts of tips, those are the things that I would, if I was answering the question, those are the things that I'd suggest, you really focus on. Mad Dog, as an officiating coach, how do you handle an official who is defensive or not accepting of feedback or not buying into the conversation we're having after the game? That's a good one. We know this happens from time to time.
Beside talking to the other guys? No.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, you're gonna continue to try. And what I would do is let the guy talk himself out and just continue to try to do my job. I need to feel that when I leave the building that I've still done everything that I could to help that guy. If he's not willing to listen, a big thing that I look for when I talk to officials is, are they active listeners? Do we have a discussion? But are they willing to implement what's being suggested? And really, that's all it is suggestions to try to make them better. If they realize that we're on their team, we're trying to help them, those types of things shouldn't happen.
For sure. And Andrew, I mean, you've been in rooms where those, one of your partners or one of your fellow officials is not receptive to the feedback they're given. There's still some things you can gain from that conversation, right? You can still learn. You're still listening in on that conversation. There's tips you can take away from, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Just because your partner may not be receptive to the information being given doesn't mean you shouldn't be. We're always listening. I try to stay out of other guys' supervision and coaching as much as possible. But if I hear something that is new to me or something I didn't know about before, I might chime in and ask for clarification on it just for my own knowledge bank and to put into my own skill set.
No, for sure. And that's the thing, right? Even when you're in the room and the officiating coach is not talking to you, there is still information that you're going to be able to gain that's going to make you a better official. And the officials that can listen to some of those things and take away from them are going to be better in the long run. Here's another question, and I just want to find it here. And I'm going to answer this from John. When moving into an evaluator position for a local organization, what recommendations or literature do we recommend to get off on the right step? Well, the most important thing is there are a couple of things. Number one, all of the manuals USA Hockey has a tremendous amount of manuals on the website, the beginner, advanced, intermediate manuals. There is a ton of information there, not only on judgment, but also on positioning, on rules interpretations and things like that. So that's going to be part of it. The other thing is USA Hockey offers an instructor training seminar. Two of them. There's one in the East, one in the West every spring. And although that is geared a little bit more towards becoming a USA Hockey certified seminar instructor, those people, and if you're helping instruct at your local seminars, those are the things, those are going to be the people that are also going to become evaluators and officiating coaches. And when you know that information, that's going to be able to help you become a more effective officiating coach. And then finally, it's no different. Last week, ZoomCasts talked about the mentor project and mentors on the ice. If you want to become an evaluator or an officiating coach in your local area, you know what? Go find the mad dog of your area. Go find the officiating coach in your area and go ask to sit with them. Watch how they're doing. And I think that's something that's really, really important. Yeah, another comment here, officials that are being coached need to be coachable, just as players need to be coachable, right? Keith, we want coachable officials. Even at the lower levels, we want officials that are coachable.
No, absolutely. You know, officials with good attitudes that want to get better, that are hungry, that want that information, want that feedback, but also, you know what, they also can express themselves and say, hey, maybe I was trying this or whatever. Like Dave was saying, I mean, I think Dave's probably one of the best guys to have dialogue with our officials, and that's why he's so well respected, because officials feel comfortable having those conversations, and they don't feel that they're being micromanaged or that they're being kind of, you know, held to maybe too high of a standard where they can't be themselves. So I think that's the most important thing, to be coachable and to be open to get better. I mean, that's huge.
No, absolutely. And Andrew, what, you know, when you think about being coachable, what does that mean to you? Give me 30 seconds on what, and I think that's one of your strengths as an official, is you are coachable. And you know, what's that mean to you?
I think it's a lot of the things we've talked about in terms of how to have positive, you know, interactions with coaches. It's being receptive to new information, being open, asking questions when it's appropriate, and not being afraid to implement these things into your game. Like Dave said, you might hear something from somebody that seems totally off the wall to you, but it's something that they think would help your game, and you have to have that ability to implement that, and that, you know, a little bit of courage to implement that into your game.
Absolutely, because Dave, if you say to an official in October, I want you to work on this, no different than us suggesting to the officials that they have a notebook to keep notes on this. You're keeping notes on that official as well. So if you then see that official in February and he's doing the same thing, that's going to be a little bit frustrating, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's something that we, you know, in the junior program, it's great that we have the, you know, the online evaluations, so you can always go back and see what was said by yourself or other people. I don't know if they have that at the grassroots level, but I'm sure that officiating coaches at those levels file reports. So there's got to be somewhere to cross-check things on them. But, you know, that's definitely going to be helpful. But it's going to be frustrating if someone, you know, isn't implementing, you know, things that you suggest, for sure.
No, for sure. And USA Hockey does have an online evaluation program. And there's been a few comments in the chat section here about formal evaluations, and there's no doubt that at the local levels they're doing the best they can right now with getting out and evaluating and coaching officials and doing the best they can to make officials better. There are those online tools USA Hockey has, so officials do receive a form at the end, and that's there. So that is part of the process that USA Hockey is continuing to implement. should you evaluate older officials who are reaching the end of their on-ice careers? Should you try and coach those officials? I'll throw it out to the group.
Yes.
Think that's important?
Yes, absolutely. We're all a team, even if that official's only got 1 or 2 more years to be working. He or she's going to come into contact with a number of different officials who they may be able to teach what they've learned from, you know, being coached. So I think the coaching should be continuous until you decide to retire.
Absolutely. I mean, if an official is putting the effort into going out on the ice to serve the game and work hard and work hockey at any level, regardless of their age, those officials deserve the opportunity to be and to try and improve. Because if they care enough to do that, you know, we want to care enough to try and make them better. Let's see. I think we have one last question here, and then we'll wrap up. Let me just see here. Keith, what advice do you have to a young official who wants to be coached and have somebody come watch them, but nobody's been out there to see them? What do you think they should do?
I think the biggest thing is trying to reach out to, you know, some of the local officials, right? Like, who are some of the mentor officials? Who are some of the officials that when you're sitting in at that seminar, maybe try to get a hold of them and just say, hey, listen, I'm working the squirt level for the first time. You know, if you have time, can I get some feedback from you or something like that? You know, it's tough. I get it. A lot of people that put on the seminars are also the people that are on the ice skating those 5, 6, 7 games a day, right? So for that young official that's trying to get better, sometimes I even encourage that official to go to the rink a little bit earlier and watch a game, maybe a higher level game. He's watching those officials. Maybe come up to them and introduce yourself and say, hey, I'm Joe Blow here. I'm trying to move up the ranks in officiating. You have any advice? Or, hey, I noticed you called that penalty with 2 minutes to go. Can you kind of explain what your thought process was? All of us in hockey, right? I mean, it's a family, it's a partnership. And I think, you know, for myself, when I was coming up, I leaned on those older officials that had that kind of, you know, they had that background. They had that, they've been there, they saw things, and they were very open and honest to be able to help me. And I think, you know, if you have the courage to go on the ice as a young official, you can have the courage to go up to one of those local officials and say, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. Can you help me with this? Or just kind of pick their brain. Because as good as our educational resources are within USA Hockey, some of those local officials, the older ones, they've seen a lot of stuff 10 times over, and they can be a great resource for you as an official moving forward. And there's some stuff that they probably can teach you that those manuals can't even touch.
You know what? That's a great way to end. So I want to really thank Andrew and Dave and Keith for your time tonight. You've, as always, been fantastic in the feedback and the information you've shared. We've gotten some great comments here in the chat section. So I really want to thank you all for your time. And then I just want to remind everybody, and of course, the producer or the technical assistant here in the ZoomCast studio is not doing so good, but we're here every Tuesday for the foreseeable future. So next Tuesday, July 7th, we are going to have a USA Hockey Officiating Program update. Matt Leaf, the director of the Officiating Education Program, along with Dave Labuda and Ken Reinhardt, our section director, are going to provide information to all of you on what's going on, what you can expect with seminars this coming season. Obviously, things are a little bit different right now with the current COVID situation. July 14th, we're going to have an episode on the women's officiating program, talking all about what's out there in terms of officiating women's hockey and opportunities for female officials. The 21st, the Declaration of Player Safety is going to be on board, and then we're going to have the 28th. It's going to be more rules, answering all your crazy rules questions with members of the USA Hockey Playing Rules Committee. So On behalf of Andrew, Dave, and Keith, I want to thank you all for taking the time to join us tonight. Want to wish you a happy 4th of July, good health and safety, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Bye for now.